Olsen.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yes, man.
I don't know. Hold on a second.
See you, man.
Oh, it says it's going to start in a minute.
Right.
So,
That's good, isn't it?
maybe. Something's going to happen anyway. Right, just give us 1 second. And,
Who are we listening to, Bob? Do you know?
not maybe scientist. I need to check. 1 second.
Scientist.
I need 1 wee second. I'm just doing my wee pop out thing and that. Right, where's that live chat? Familiarising myself with the territory and that.
I love Bob Marley's You.
Of course,
Of course. I love it.
Time. Maybe scientist. I need to check. Right, there we go. Right. We're live. Right, 1 second, John, just so I can put on my. That should be. I just need to go here. Right. Good afternoon to all. Let me just welcome to What the X on oh, have I got my, yeah, I do, I've got my microphone up. An impromptu live stream with the legend. The legend, John Player Special. Is your last name Special?
No,
Come on,
no.
eh?
Should be.
But you're a special guy. You're bathed in red there.
Bathed in red. Is that good?
You're bathed in red. I'm kind of pasty, and you're bathed in red. I'll try and very quickly just address that if possible. Can I do that? Oh, there we go.
That's better, isn't it?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't mind being
Bathed in red.
Red and black.
I don't know what.
Red and black for
I
anarchy.
don't know what I've done now. Let me try and warm you up a wee bit. Right, we'll go with that. I reckon.
Yes.
It's a bit too much. Right, John. Listen.
Yes.
First of all, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much.
You've been on my case a bit, like, you know what I mean? I quite like that, because that's a man after my own heart. Like, relentlessly messaging folk and that, like, oh, no. Were you worried that you would forget what had happened and you just wanted to...
That's it, because it's history. It's already history. It's already
You know what?
over a month ago.
I kind of thought that, right? When I was actually thinking about it, I was going, I kind of know why this guy's actually kind of on this mode. At least I thought I knew. But I thought, I get it. I think we're kind of in that perpetual John Reid 10 days that shook the world. It just seems to be like every 10 days it's another 10 days that's going to shake the world.
Yes,
like,
John Reid, the American Bolshevik.
Did you read that book?
Yes, the Bolshevik. Yeah.
Ah, it's a phenomenal book, that.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's my favourite bit in it, right? Is when they go to this Soviet, right? They find this like outpost somewhere where there's these guys.
It's not Kronstadt. It's not Kronstadt.
It's years since I read it, but
Right.
he finds these guys and they're like, they've no eaten for days, and the first thing they say is, "Have you got anything for us to read?" Do you know what I mean? Like such was the thirst.
Brilliant.
Such was the thirst for information.
I
They
know.
were printing like 6 papers a day and stuff. You know what I mean?
But that's not
But
something.
how would the SWP cope with that? Like, you know what I
They
mean?
don't cope. They don't.
They would love
they
it.
don't-
Imagine how many placards they'd be able to print every day. Like, you know what I
The
mean?
SWP can't cope with the Soviet called Kronstadt. Kronstadt.
Why,
Check that
what's-
one out.
okay.
It proclaimed. Lenin said all power to the Soviets, and Kronstadt said, right, we're proclaiming ourselves an independent, autonomous, anarchist Soviet.
Right. Okay.
And Trotsky drove the Red Army, waited for the ice to freeze. It's an island off the north of Russia, and waited for the ice to freeze, and then
I went across. That's
went
right.
across
aye,
with the
that's
Red
right,
Army.
Yeah, I know it. I know
and
the drill.
shot 1 in 5. So it's a very difficult subject for them.
We have a live guest with us, Chris Breaks, who's a very talented musician from Leith.
Brilliant.
He says afternoon all.
Afternoon, Chris.
Good to see you, because we've got one viewer on YouTube right now, which is Chris Breaks. So this is, as I said, we've actually got a few more than one, but we've got
Good.
one. This is an impromptu, non-planned. There's never really much planned when it comes to me anyway, to be honest, like, you know. But I'm delighted to be joined by John Player. And John Player, amongst many things, is a political activist who has Sky Blue. We've got the old crew are joining us, John. That's good to know. That.
Sky
Blue. I
Blue.
thought we'll go out there.
Sky
We'll be named
Blue.
to there. We don't know if anyone will be there. And I thought, you know what? Rather than recording this, I'll just live stream it so I can get on with the rest of my fucking day. Like, you know, let's just get out of the way. But John, you are an activist, a political activist, for want of a better term. It's a term that gets applied. You know, many people. Some people. I call myself a reluctant activist, but you know, it's there's almost like a sort of we're in a time where it feels like we're a bit duty bound in some ways.
Duty bound, yeah.
A wee bit.
Yeah.
But the reason that we're speaking to you today, if you just bear with me 1 second, I'll just see if I've got any folk in my X chat as well, which is not yet, but I just want it on my screen. The reason that we've decided to very special, says Chris Briggs. The reason that you're here is because last month, actually, yeah, it is last. We're still in July. Last month, you took part in this. It did receive a decent amount of publicity, which was the Global March to Gaza. That's correct, yeah.
Yes, Bob. Yes.
And yes, Bob was. It's like blockbusters that we moved into, like, you know what I mean? Did Bob Holness play the saxophone on Baker Street? Remember, for years it was this urban myth, like, you know what I mean? I never bought it.
Brilliant. Love it.
Matty Ross has also joined us as well. So,
Right.
John, you very bravely joined the Ben Walker Happy Tuesday. You very bravely joined the Global March to Gaza. Now, I'm just going to read. You sent me a wee bit of info the other night there, and I'm just going to read a wee bit of it because I think it gives a wee bit of background and context to the entire event and you. And I think for anybody that's listening or watching just now, it'd be beneficial to them. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read what you sent me earlier, John. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Global March to Gaza, June 2025. The Global March to Gaza of June 2025 was not only a political demonstration, but an intensely personal journey. For decades, I have been committed to Palestinian solidarity, from local activism in Scotland to international efforts. The trip combined experiential learning with dystopian encounters of fear and repression, revealing the complex realities of resistance under siege. A wee bit background to you. You've put, my activism began in 2009 and 10 during protests against the Royal Bank of Scotland's climate damaging investments. Through these actions, I built relationships with activists like Phil McCowan, whose involvement with Gaza aid flotillas deepened my understanding of Zionism, the Nakba of 1948, and the brutal colonisation of Palestinians. October the 7th, 2023 intensified this commitment. The Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign, SPSC, and the Edinburgh Gaza Genocide Emergency Committee, EGGEC, quickly denounced Israel's response as genocidal, galvanising mass marches. Politically, contradictions abounded. International condemnation of Israeli war crimes clashed with the UK government's complicity, highlighted by the Angus Robertson Israeli ambassador scandal. And we'll just look at the preparations to going to Egypt as well. What you put here, you've said that preparation for the march was shaped by the security briefing circulated to UK delegates. It warned of military harassment, surveillance and detentions in Sinai. These warnings proved accurate. At Cairo airport I was interrogated, accused of carrying 2 passports and released under suspicion. Cairo became a place of fear, as described in Cairo Where the Road to Gaza Ends, where activists were trapped between authoritarian control and the distant suffering of Gaza. Travel to Ismailia was fraught with checkpoints and costly taxis. On June the 13th, after Israeli attacks on Iran, fears escalated that Rafah crossing would close. Our convoy was blocked and attacked in Ismailia, forcing activists to scatter. I spent days avoiding the secret police before escaping via Lyon. So it sounds quite dramatic in its own right, John, quite frankly, you know. Despite the chaos unfolding everywhere else, it sounds like you yourself had to keep your head down basically once you were there.
I don't know. It's kind of you'd say I was brave. I wasn't really prepared. I thought intuitively, Bob, that the Egyptians would get, being an Arab nation, given the Suez Canal, given the history of Egypt, they would be empathetic to the Palestine brothers and sisters. But the collusion of El-Sisi with the Israelis, and especially the United States, made it absolutely sure they were going to back the Israelis against Mandela the grandson of Nelson Mandela, who was there in a leadership role. He was saying there was about 4,000 people had got into Egypt, and the Israelis were saying to the Egyptians, if you don't stop them, we will. So that was the clampdown. We couldn't get to Ismailia by bus. The buses were stopped on the Friday the 13th, the day Israel attacked Iran. Yes, and the buses were stopped, so we all had to individually get taxis. But I didn't know anybody. I'd arrived the night before, got my passport taken away, got hassled and interrogated a bit by the police in the airport, and then I'd booked a hotel next to the pyramids so I could have this cover as a tourist, and I'd booked it for 10 days.
Had you been to Egypt before?
Never.
Did you go to the pyramids?
Well, when I opened my window in the morning,
You've seen them.
And then I had to beg the taxi driver to pick me up at 7 because that's when all the activists were meeting at a certain hotel. But when I arrived at the hotel, nobody knew me. They were saying, you're dodgy. Who are you? Nobody knows you. Are you on your own? And I said, yeah, I'm on my own. I'm from Scotland. And so I had enough evidence that I'd sort of been recruited by the March to Gaza, and eventually they kind of calmed down about this because they were so jumpy. They were much more nervous than I expected because of the secret police, because they felt more realistically than me that we were going to get stopped any time. So the buses were stopped, and they said to me, I couldn't get any money. I didn't have a SIM card that worked in. I didn't have a SIM card that worked in Egypt. So me and another guy went around to see if we could get a Vodafone SIM card, and it was closed. Friday the 13th, prayer day. We came back, and everybody had got taxis apart from me. and they said, oh, you're on your Todd, John, you're on your own, you just have to get a taxi. And of course,
not much solidarity going on here, Rory.
Well, they were scared. There was just this fear. There was just who are you?
How did you hear about the global march
I just heard it through the movement, really, just the pro-Palestine movement come up with Nelson Mandela's grandson, saying we've got to march to Gaza. Then the details come up on the internet, and I signed up. But I thought naively, it's the value of hindsight. But naively, I thought there'd be hundreds of people going from Scotland. But there was only about 3 or 4 of us, so we couldn't even create a Scottish subgroup within the apps that we were given, or we had to subscribe to keep confidential. So there's a lot of secrecy, a lot of fear that I hadn't really expected. But when I got back to the hotel, they said, we'll see you at Ismailia. And I couldn't get a taxi. I mean, I didn't have a Vodafone phone. So the people in the hotel took pity on me, really. And the manager came down the stairs, and we tried to get a taxi, and nobody would take me. It was 3 hours or something away from Cairo. So eventually, this old guy stopped. And he said, that'll be $70. And I said, $40. And
ever the Western imperialist, like haggling, like. I mean.
It was the manager. He said, no, $50. So the guy said $50. So I jumped in the taxi. We got round the corner. He spoke to another taxi driver, and he was saying, no, it must be $70 for that. Must be $70. So I said, well, I didn't have any choice. And then he stopped the taxi. We haggled again over paying for the petrol. Then we went on a toll motorway, and we haggled about that. And then we he said, do you mind if I smoke and all this kind of stuff? And
did you mind if he smoked?
I did, but I had no Shukran was the only word.
You're going to have to put up with the tobacco.
You're going to have to put up with the tobacco.
So what did you pay him, 70 or 50?
No, by the time I got there, it
was 100.
Oh no, it was more than that. By the time we got there, we got to a crossing, a roadblock at Ismailia. And then a guy, and he was getting really nervous because the cars were really piling up, all the taxis were piling up. And
so this was activists that were descending at this point?
They were descending in taxis, hundreds of taxis. And then a guy in authority, a policeman or something, asked him to put and he said, I want his passport. And so I handed over my passport, and the taxi driver got really nervous. You have to get out. This is Ismailia. This is the youth hostel. That's what he told me. It's the youth hostel. It was a police kind of detention centre place. And so I got out. Didn't have my. And then, but then things became to come apparent. I wasn't alone. There was some of the people I'd met in the hotel were quite glad to see me. Things began to open up. People were pulling out their Kafirs, their Palestine's flags. There was real militancy from Algeria, from Tunisia, a real sense of militancy. People from Nicaragua, Nelson Mandela's grandson, loads of Irish people, and loads of great people, lots of South Africans. So then people started chanting and singing and stuff like this, and then I thought we were going, passports back. And it had a kind of good vibe about it. I was feeling quite optimistic, really. And then they said, we'll give out, after 3 or 4 hours, they give out the passports for the people from the US, from different areas, Denmark and things like that. And then at the end, they gave out the British passports. And then when I got my because we were waiting all afternoon.
So where had the passports been confiscated on arrival?
On arrival, and then taken into the police centre, and then checked, and then they would gather by nation to give out the passports, and they'd get somebody to shout out the names. And then we got the passports, and people were saying, right, we'll stay the night here. And there was a huge group of us. I don't know. It felt like 1,000. I don't know, but it felt like a big group put in a field, and there was these riot police surrounded us, and they were all young men. They looked about 17 or 18, and everybody said, well, they're not going to I mean, they looked like they were crying. They really didn't want to be there. They were in full kind of regalia, riot police regalia, with helmets and visors and everything. They didn't really want to be there. And we were thinking, well, they're not going to give us too much trouble, and we'll stay the night and then we'll march. Because everybody was saying, I haven't come all the way here not to get to Gaza. People are starving in Gaza. People are dying in Gaza. We've come here to do something about it. And I had my sleeping bag and stuff, so I was getting ready really to... and the chanting. And then the riot police kind of cordoned us off in a field, and then behind them was more serious-looking military police. Then eventually, after with all the shouting and stuff like that, the riot police opened up a kind of gateway, and all these thugs dressed in kind of Bedouin gear with their kaffirs on and stuff like that, just started to attack people, throwing plastic bottles in people's faces, and a violence I didn't really expect. And I was watching the violence, and we would just put our hands up. We just put our hands up in sort of non-violent action, really. So that we couldn't really fight them. There was more of them. They were more violent than us. But some people lost their temper with them, and there was a feeling of kind of fear and panic. And then one of them, an older one of them, pulled me by the t-shirt and threw me on a bus with all these other people. And the bus was made up of Swedish and Italian, Greek activists. And I was sitting next to a guy from Iraq who befriended me really. And there was a lawyer on the bus from Greece, and he was saying they're either going to detain us in the Egyptian jail, or they're going to deport us tomorrow morning or in the next few days. So people thought, well, I hope I get deported. I don't fancy the Egyptian jail and stuff like that. And then we weren't sure if we were going directly, because these buses had been organised by the military, and we weren't sure if we were going to the police station next or where we were going. And the Iraqi guy, obviously Arabic was his first language, went and spoke to the guy and said, it's all right, if we give him a tip, he'll let us off just outside the centre of Cairo. So everybody it was just like, just a feeling of relief, that's it, just a feeling of relief. And they let us off in this crazy German. We were just swearing all the fuck it, I've got the fuck it. So her and I and the Iraqi guy grouped together because he had a hotel, and he said it was quite a cheap hotel, and he said he'd take us there and get us rooms and stuff like that. And so time had gone by. By the time we actually got to the hotel, it was midnight really. So this had all gone on all day, but there was just, I mean, there was a poor kind of hotel, but it was somewhere to stay. And then we said, we'll meet for dinner. But I think the German woman just crashed out. And then the guy came down and I said, are we going for somewhere to eat? And he said, oh yes, I'll take you to a kebab place. And I said, I'm a kind of backsliding vegan. And so we went to this it was just a beautiful place on the Nile.
Right.
And they got a huge, but I was so kind of freaked out by the events. I had enough food. They gave us unlimited supply, unlimited.
You had a small appetite at that point, did you?
I've got an enormous appetite, but it had gone.
Okay.
And he was a devout Muslim, and invited me over to Iraq to read the Quran with him and stuff like this. And I said, well, it's not really, there's a spirituality, but I feel, I've got a lot of disputes with Islam and Mohammedism and stuff like this, but a lot of respect, certainly in the community where I live up at the south side. The chemist, my barber, where I get my chippy. They've taken me.
Where'd you get your chippy?
I get the chippy.
Kebab Mahal.
No, it's a long for that. It's like burger something. And I think
You can't beat Kebab Mahal.
You can't beat Kebab Mahal. You can't. Although,
shout out to Kebab Mahal, by the way.
Shout out to Kebab.
Sponsors of What the X.
And it's called burger something, but they always and they take me to the mosque sometimes because we like you, John, and when you die, we want you to go to heaven and all that.
Let's get back to the case in point, though, right? So, you made this decision to go on your jack, right? Which was quite an impulsive thing to do, right?
It's impulsive.
And was this born out of just sheer frustration with what's been happening?
Well, I took a note of that this morning. At least 43 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces across Gaza since dawn today. So that's the day, the 29th of July. So people are dying all the time. We're witnessing a genocide. It's like we're witnessing Belsen and Auschwitz in front of our eyes. And the cruelty, I find the cruelty overwhelming. What? And I'm not a Leninist, but his track. What is to be done? What is to be done? What are we going to do? I mean, if in a heartbeat people would go like the International Brigade and fight the Israelis if they could, but the Israelis are a military might backed by the United States with bombs that we've, and the military intelligence. That's how I got involved originally, was through the flotillas that were attacked by Mossad coming from Turkey, and they jumped on and shot 10 Turkish pro-Palestine activists. So that's how I got involved with Quaker colleagues down in England in 2010. So I was aware of the ruthlessness of Mossad and the Israeli commandos, but I hadn't. Then it unfolded after the 7th of October, and I can remember people saying, "Oh, well, there's going to be trouble now. Fucking hell, there's going to be trouble now. The Palestinians are really going to pay for that." But I knew through my education about Palestine, about the occupation, about Gaza being a huge open prison and concentration camp, really. So I emotionally was resistant to this powerful anti-Hamas rhetoric and propaganda. So I had some knowledge base to fight it within my head, because it's very emotional. Babies having their heads cut off and all this kind of stuff.
Definitely.
Really, that has been disproven now.
Of course, there's no evidence of it whatsoever.
But at October the 7th, and then all the media, the politicians, Starmer saying
Netanyahu was the first person that Starmer phoned when he got in the office. That's the first person that he phoned. And now they're
is that true? I believe it.
That is true. That is true.
It's unbelievable. And probably Swinney and Angus Robertson, they phoned him as well.
More than likely, the Lancet.
Yes.
People are now.
Yes.
Correlating what the Lancet said. They're suggesting that if that's true, they estimate that over 400,000 Palestinians have now been killed.
The Lancet said this last year.
The Lancet. I think what people are saying today is that if we continue the modelling that the Lancet set, it would indicate that over 400. I think it's 430,000.
That's what they said last year.
It seems to
buried
me
in the rubble, Bob.
I think so. I think the thing is, when we have the deniers, we have this. There are repugnant reptilian creatures like Melanie Phillips and whatnot who exist in the British popular consciousness, as part of the British established media and whatnot.
And fascists,
basically fascists. Who are not only refuting everything, who are themselves actively pumping out propaganda, suggesting it's not a genocide, that it's all manufactured,
and been paid payroll by Mossad.
It's undoubted that they're on the payroll. Some are just repugnant human beings who actually revel in such things. Yeah. But I think
Sadists.
I think after nearly 2 years, and we've seen the devastation that's been wrought on the land. It's ridiculous to think that we should be submitting to or subscribing to these there's still huge figures, 30, 40,000 and stuff like
50,000. We know that 59,000 now. 59,000.
It's going to be.
It's unsustainable. It's terrible.
Hugely greater than
and
that.
they'll end up in The Hague. Lamy and Stammer have a chance because we've been so complicit in it from the word go.
You really think you expect to see a day when these people end up in the Hague?
I would love that day. I will celebrate with you, Bob. I'll celebrate.
I'm not convinced that we're going to see it.
No. But they're complicit in war crimes. They're complicit in war crimes. But the thing is, I think an indicator of a sort of counter-hegemonic, if you like, to use the jargon, of things beginning to change is where Starmer with the American president, they're talking about how bad things are with children getting killed and all this kinds of stuff, and with the Daily Express saying this has got to stop with pictures of starvation of children. And the Daily Express, which traditionally has been one of the most right-wing newspapers in the country. There's a shift. Do you not think so, Bob?
Of course, there's a shift, but I can't get particularly excited about that shift. You have a whole bunch of latent celebrities, Bob Geldof, whatnot.
Bob Geldof. That's right.
I don't really personally. I don't understand what the value of these people's contributions are. I think that we're looking at a split essentially in culture in general.
There's a cultural split.
But these people represent a dead culture, a dying culture, the mainstream culture. Anybody that is part of the mainstream culture, if you're a writer or an artist and you propagate yourself via the mainstream, so that means if you go on the BBC, if you're in the Guardian, if you're giving interviews to all of these kind of mainstream publications about whatever it is that you're doing, and you're not actively talking about the crime of the century, you're not actively talking about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
It's
you are essentially redundant as an artist at that point. So people like Geldof and whatnot suddenly finding the conscience to pipe up now.
And that commentator, Piers Morgan. Even Piers Morgan is now really anti-Israeli.
Well, Morgan, I think I see Morgan as just part of the spectacle.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just
the society of the spectacle.
Of course, it's like Guy Debord. Yeah, of course. But I kind of see these type of people as it's almost like. Morgan sort of represents a sort of vulgar game show host, you know what I mean, where he brings on, sort of performative opposing factions. I've never watched an episode of it. I see occasional clips of it and stuff, but for me personally, it doesn't. It's a kind of a gaudy sideshow. It's a completely ineffectual
place. But is it not a signifier of a shift in popular culture that he's now, because he was so adamant, you couldn't say anything if you didn't criticise Hamas in the first place. It became obsessed. Do you condone Hamas? It was Piers Morgan that was saying that. Really?
Well, we know this, but again, what that allowed was diplomatic and political cover for not so much diplomatic, sort of like media cover for the Israelis to continue their rampage,
Yes.
And I think the thing that we have to take into consideration is, we've had nearly 24 months of this. I think one of the most vulgar aspects I find of the kind of Johnny-come-lately celebrities and whatnot who have decided to suddenly go, we better get involved in this, we better say something. Our cultural capital is under threat if we don't actually.
Absolutely.
If we don't acknowledge this, I think every one of those celebrities, unless they're going actively to find out the names and ages and locations of young activists and whatnot who are currently incarcerated as a result of their protestations against it, what I mean? It's like they're the people that need to be highlighted. Who are these people? Who are these people who have put themselves in line? And with all due respect, sorry to cut you, John, but it's with all due respect, it's like I would in some ways include somebody like yourself in that. You know what I mean? I understand. Well, no, in seriousness, right? It's like you must have known on some level this is potentially, quite possibly, a somewhat futile exercise, right? There's no way you were going to get to Gaza.
But I didn't. In my heart, I thought, there was thousands.
You really thought you were going to get to Gaza?
Hundreds of Scots that will smash through. Come on, you cunt. I did it in my heart, and I thought, given the Egyptian history and stuff like that, and the the Brotherhood there and everything, that essentially the Egyptians would be on the side of the Gazans and the Palestinians.
But we've seen how these Arab states, we've seen how they've been compromised. I'm by no means some geopolitical expert by any sense of stretch the imagination, but I've tried to sort of figure out, I've looked into it. It seems that they're all compromised.
Especially Egypt.
Massively compromised. But that is not to say that the populations, their native populations, are not outraged and disgusted by it, because they are.
You don't see many Palestinian flags. I saw one Palestinian flag hanging, and I think that might.
Was that in Egypt?
In Egypt, in Cairo. Cairo was very subdued.
I think Egypt is definitely, hugely compromised.
Military on the streets.
So the point being, though, that there have been brave activists and continue to be brave activists. Obviously, the issue with the Palestine Action thing, that's an example of that.
And also an indicator of the gaps in the state. The state are, the state have made a huge mistake there. The internationally, legally made a huge mistake, and for Yvette Cooper to come ahead with this at this time is a significant kind of shift in authoritarianism. Unnecessary.
No, definitely. I think. I mean, I've long been trying to sort of raise people's awareness to how reactionary and authoritarian these professional managerial class neoliberals would be, especially when they sat on the sidelines watching the COVID escapades, and they saw the kind of the thirsty enthusiasm for authority and social control that the Conservatives or the sitting government were involved in, and whatever people's opinions are about, the importance of having measures or whatever, it was definitely exploited and abused. There was
but there was contradictions, Bob, for the homeless.
Of course,
people were put up in 5-star hotels in Edinburgh. It was things happened. It showed that, given the political will, you could eradicate homelessness overnight. Put them up in the 5-star hotels.
Absolutely.
Until the kickback came. These cunts are staying in high 5-star hotels, never done a day's work in their life.
Okay, and the people are going to present these arguments, but we still need to have better ways of dealing with homelessness and poverty and inequality.
But it can be eradicated through redistribution in a minute.
Of course,
in a minute.
But then we're daft socialist lefties, aren't we? This is where we find common ground.
And the common ground with the exposure of Starmer, the exposures of that managerial project, and now the opportunity through my party and things like that with Sultana and Corbyn.
I'm not excited by this.
I'm excited by it. I'm excited by it because it's a ray of hope. But every time Corbyn comes up here, I ask him about Scottish independence. You support self-determination for Palestine, obviously. You support self-determination for Ireland. Why don't you unequivocally say you support self-determination for Scotland? But it's a fear also. It's a fear, that history since the referendum and during the referendum, the worry about nationalism and that it would take us down a kind of backward road, as it has recently in Ireland. The trickle being aligned with anti-immigration in a really very, very sort of British way,
I think we're at a crisis point. I think we need radical system change.
Definitely.
And I don't believe that this new party of momentum, ex-momentum types, and Owen Jones and Novara Media and that are remotely going to be able to.
But they're on the side. They're on the right side of history, Bob. They're good people. They are good people.
I'm not entirely convinced of that statement. We'd have to get at the nitty-gritty of that, to be honest. But let's go back to this issue.
Sorry, Bob.
Let's not veer too much off topic just now.
Yes. But the thing about Egypt, eventually when the guy, I knew quite like this, but the hotel manager, a young guy, and they're all in suits that were like aspiring Egyptian people for better jobs and a better way of life through hotels, a big business and tourism. And it wasn't a great hotel, but he said to me, I like the Columbia, blah, blah, blah. And I said, who's rah? And he said, I really like
the Colombian. Is what you said?
A Colombian. I thought he was talking about Pasco Egavat, the cocaine dealer. And he said, no. And eventually, he was a big fan of Che Guevara.
Oh, okay. Argentinian.
That's why I said he's Argentinian. He's not Colombian. He's Argentinian. And anyway, I showed him my tattoo.
Let's get a look at your tattoo.
Let's get a look at.
There's old Che on the arm, like good. Che on the shoulder.
But like Bob, I'm more inclined towards libertarian communism and Camillus Centrifugus. But anyway, he helped me get a taxi. For days I was staying there and I was on my own. I didn't have a phone that worked. the German woman had buggered off. The Iraqi guy.
Without you don't sound like you were the most prepared for this. You know what I mean?
I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared.
You're just going like, I'm going to Gaza. I'm going to feed them.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to take a phone.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to take any food. I'm just going to fuck it.
I had a phone, but the guy sold me. The guy sold me a what's one of these cards? You know,
a SIM card.
A SIM card that didn't work in that didn't work in Egypt. The only place in Africa it didn't work was. So I couldn't get. Eventually, got a Vodafone thing, but I don't know. I managed to phone home once, and that was it. And I was on my Todd wandering about Cairo, and he eventually got a plane going to Lyon, flying to Lyon, and then from Lyon to Edinburgh 2 or 3 days later. And
so you went to France and then got.
I went to France, and I got on. So, and then I began to feel that. Because through Signal and all the media, the internal media for the group, people were getting arrested. Secret police were walking into bars, lifting people and detaining them. There was a huge kind of infighting cause there was a feeling of defeat. We've come all this way, we've spent all this money.
Was there no sort of? It sounds.
There was a leadership.
It sounds incredibly disorganised, right? Which is any sort of like well-meaning leftist cause, like, you know what I mean? It's nothing new there, like, you know what I mean? But
no, it wasn't. There were people stayed on till the bitter end to make sure everybody got out. There was organisers that stayed on and then moved up. I sent you the.
There was the Welsh guy that was put all over the telly. I got the clip somewhere, but I mean, you know the guy that was kind of like.
I'm just glad that wasn't me.
Did you meet that guy?
I met him, but I didn't.
Did you think that is he a state plant or just a sandwich shot at a picnic? Like, you know what I mean?
No, it's a sandwich sort of. But no, I think he
means well-meaning, but
he's a well-meaning emotionalist.
Right, brilliant.
That
he should have basically come up to the festival though and done 3 weeks here rather than stand at the border trying to get to Gaza.
He was articulating, although it was embarrassing, he was articulating what we feel really deeply. This is outrageous.
But it did have that. It did have that sort of like delusional, almost like sort of quasi missionary imperialist vibe going on about it. Do you know what I mean? Where you're basically going, look, mate, what the fuck are you doing? You've come all the way from Timbuktu, as far as they're concerned. Now you're here. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care. They're not interested. Their entire country has been suppressed in terms of its expression of solidarity with Gaza.
Totalitarianism, but good on him in a way. I think I think Mossad would try to get a hold of him as well.
What, to pay him? to give him the money? To give him the money they were due?
No. I think big shout outs and big respect, because he was articulating in some ways what we feel as well.
No, I agree. I mean, I
jest. I jest. Oh, I know you jest. I know, but it was kind of, oh dear, you know.
No, totally. So tell me.
There was people organised who stayed till everybody got out of Cairo and made sure, and then ended up in Tunisia and kept the thing going, and then tried to organise more boats and flotillas and stuff like that. But I don't have the wherewithal. Never mind. The wherewithal to survive in Cairo under a military dictatorship, but to get a boat organised and stuff. But it's the flotilla, the handler, the most recent one's been stopped, and the one with Greta Thunberg was stopped a couple of weeks ago. With the Israeli commander jumping on.
So there's an argument, isn't there, that these type of protests, whether these actions of direct action, if you like, or otherwise. That they serve as symbolic statements, essentially, to continue to keep attention on this genocide that is occurring. So from
and part of the movement, it's an expression of care, it's an expression of goodwill, it's an expression, most importantly, of solidarity. Do you know what I mean? It has feelings. It has feelings of the International Brigade in the 30s in the.
But it's not political. Let me get.
It's ultra political. It's the most political.
Issue
going. Really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is what the point I'm trying to make. Right. It's like basically, it's from the principle of these type of actions. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
They get a free pass from the basis of what they're trying to do in terms of like what they're opposing, principally in terms of what they're trying to do. Right. What I think is an issue, for example, We've had 2 years now of this,
Yes.
right?
Nearly 2 years, Bob. Yes.
Yeah, and if you go to a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, well, anti-genocide march, whatever, however you want to frame it, okay?
Yeah.
You cannot escape the dominant demographic at any of these events, right? And it has to be addressed, right? It has to be addressed, and then because this is part of the failure, part of the reason, because this is tied into the wider failure of our entire polity.
Yes.
That's the part I think is worth.
But it's a bit like the priest criticising the people who came along to the mass for all the
I'm
people.
not the priest, and I'm neither the congregation.
You know what I mean?
I'm neither the
people who
congregation
turned out,
nor
and
the
the
priest.
demographic. Unless Riddick was drawing attention to that on the 19th.
My problem is this.
The problem with Leslie Riddick, but she's much more kind of mainstream and she had been.
What is Leslie Riddick's contribution other than speaking to the choir? Do you know what I mean? Of liberal left Scottish folk, that middle class folk, that very good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and a lot of these people. It's
but they're more mainstream than us, Bob. They're able to communicate and bring in more people.
Bring in who though? They're not bringing in anybody, John. They're not. There's no way that there is a cohort of disenfranchised individuals who are suddenly motivated because Leslie Riddick's come out and said a few words on the high street. You know what I mean? That's just ridiculous. That's not the case at all.
It wasn't in the high street. It was outside Queen Elizabeth House.
Outside Queen Elizabeth House. Well, wherever it is. But the point is that this has been essentially. Now I've seen people. David Jameson wrote a really good article about why the movement was vital and why it was securing wins and it was a threat to the state and all the rest of it.
And that's signified in the outlawing and proscription of Palestine Acts.
I agree as well.
Who are the same demographic, the people who are busting in to Leonardo's or to the British military and the industrial military complex and the Israeli military complex are that demographic. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't dispute that either, right? And
they're heroes. They're the conscience of the nation
that as well.
really.
It's like I'm just making the point I'm trying to get across though is this: that I don't think that the SPSC and other sections of this pro-Palestine have historically, traditionally had enough politics. Basically, they don't have any class politics, and they never particularly attack the political class.
But do you not think what's happening in Palestine is part of the class war?
Of course, it's the class war. It's the class war. It's the crystallisation of the class war. So that's exactly what it is.
But then you're back to your sort of the analysis. There's two classes. There's two classes, Bob.
There's more than. Well, I know you like to make this point, but I disagree as well on that. Like, you know what I mean? This notion that that everybody's just part of the working class. That's not true.
Except for the 1%. Except for the people
doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, though. You know that
it doesn't work like that. Of course, people find themselves in through Thatcherism, selling off council houses, consciousness being changed. The Blairite project,
the neoliberal project is a project of consciousness suppression. I don't dispute that.
But Scotland, in some ways, was politically organised in the working class.
Why is the
Scottish Socialist Party, wasn't it?
Why? Okay.
6 MSPs.
Here's an example, right? Why is Angus Robertson still in a job? Right, Angus Robertson should not be in a job. He certainly shouldn't be the Minister of Culture. Right?
Who is Angus Robertson? Who are these people? Who are these people, Bob? They're managerialists. They'd be happy in any party.
Is it not? Well, that's true. But
they'd be happy in any
when it comes to Robertson himself, he's clearly a Zionist. He's clearly got he's quasi-Zionist.
He's got allegiances with Zionism.
Of course he does, right?
Through his practice.
Of course he does, right? So the hypocrisy, the contradictions and hypocrisy that continually emerge from the Scottish government. You know what I mean? The what they say with one hand, they do something different with the other.
Yes.
But for example,
our job is to expose them, Bob.
No, but they don't. This is the problem. What I'm trying to say, like SPSC people like this, right? It's like these groups, as far as I'm concerned, because they like to assume like we're the dominant force against Zionism, we're the pro-Palestinian groups.
No, they've been at it for 40 years. They've been at it so long. Do you know what I mean? They've got credibility.
Nobody says that they don't have
but they've got credibility.
Of course they've got credibility. Right, so that's exactly my point, right? If they've got credibility, if they're the go-to places that organise and mobilise for the anti-genocide, anti-Zionist protests in Scotland, if they're the people that are generally coordinating the marches, putting all the rest of it together, right?
Yeah.
Why have they not attacked the Scottish government to the necessary degree? They haven't.
Oh, they do.
No, they haven't.
Oh, they do.
No, they haven't. Right? They did it.
They've called out Swinney. They called out Swinney every opportunity.
No, they haven't. No, they haven't called them out.
And the collusion of the Scottish government with Scottish opinion,
Enterprise there hasn't been enough.
But that's
scrutiny of the political class, especially the Scottish political class.
But then, comrade, that's where you can help us. That's where you can help us.
I can help you.
Well, expose them. Keep the.
I do what I can do. I'm just a guy with a computer. That's what I mean.
But you're trying.
I do better than most, like, you know what I'm saying?
You're trying. You're trying.
I think there's a failure here.
But that's a good one about Angus Robertson. I don't fully.
Why
where does he come? From where does that Angus? It comes up through the ranks of the SNP. He has this close alliance.
The problem that you have is
with the ambassador
large sections of these people that are out protesting vote for the SNP, vote for the Labour Party.
But they vote for the SNP after the independence referendum.
Well, whatever they vote for, it's like they're still voting for neoliberals who are doing the bidding of Zionists.
But tactically, they see themselves.
Bringing the Israelis into Scotland and giving them full, a slap-up meal at the Witchery and a guided bus tour and a deep-fried Mars bar, right? You know what I'm saying? Halfway, a year. It's like a year into the fucking genocide.
I know.
And they tried to cover it up.
They tried to cover it
up. They tried to cover it up.
Terrible. It's unforgivable. I don't know how he's maintained his position.
Because there's not enough pressure on him from the Scottish bourgeois establishment.
Yeah. But there's pressure,
and especially
within,
from the arts establishment. What's that?
There are socialists within the. Tommy Shepherd was speaking at.
Tommy Shepherd's not a socialist. Tommy Shepherd's an opportunist. Tommy Shepherd is your consummate political class careerist. Tommy Shepherd will jump parties, jump ship.
Anybody, listen, Tommy when he was an MP.
So that doesn't mean anything. That means
speaking,
he's an opportunist because it's in his interest to be there. At the very least he can do is tick that box. Tommy Shepherd is a
not many SNP MPs have been at a rally.
Tommy Shepherd is a craven opportunist. Tommy Shepherd has no politics, no integrity. I don't believe he believes even in Scottish independence. Tommy Shepherd is your consummate public parasite. It's people like that we need to remove from politics. But then these people, they're ineffectual. They've done nothing. Shepherd, right? Yeah. Not only has Shepherd made plenty of money as a political careerist, he got plenty of dollar for his thing, the COVID thing, for his stand comedy club and that. He's had loads of money. Do you know that he paid the party to get his selection? He paid them £30,000. That's how much of an integral socialist Tommy Shepherd is. He
hasn't harmed us as much as Tommy Sheridan.
He's fucking got on my tits.
He's got Tommy Sheridan should get more on your tits.
Sheridan v Shepherd. Sheridan v Shepherd. Is this what? Is this?
No. That's reductionism.
Ringside seats. Come on, we could probably fucking make a bit of dollar out of that. To be honest, like what I'm saying.
A bit of dollar. Know what I'm saying? I love that.
Right. So let's get just back on point about this. Right. So, bottom line is this. Right. You've been have you been at every march?
Everyone.
You've been at every march.
I'm one of the stewards. I've been.
Yeah. Willie Black has been incredible. He's been tireless at the whole
Me
match.
and Willie are very close now. We haven't always been close because of different political parties.
But this is a unifying issue, isn't it?
Isn't it? He's one of my best pals.
I think that when we see the incomprehensible degrees of inhumanity that we're witnessing.
Unbearable, Bob. It's unbearable. That's what I thought. That's why I've got to go. It's like Thierry Libertad landing Liberty. Let's go and fight the fascists. Let's go and fucking do something. Do you know what I mean?
No, mate, I love it. It's like homage to Catalonia.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
absolutely. That's my other tattoos. The Confederation National, the CNT, who really, that's who Thierry Libertad was all about.
Beautiful.
The James Connolly column, which was part of the 15th Brigade.
Yeah.
Who really were, and the biggest. That's why I thought there'd be thousands of Scots in Cairo. The most people who went from any nation by head of population to fight Franco with the Scots.
That's right.
With the Scots.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The Scots against Franco.
I've got a few comments here. Beldam Lascar says they love authoritarianism. I believe just they.
Who's they? I don't.
They
Bob
do.
doesn't.
Leslie wants another trip to Scandinavia. I presume that's what Leslie did.
But that film's worth seeing. Denmark's really worth seeing. It made me weep because
Mick Young echoes my position. He says if there has been scrutiny of the Scottish Government, then it's carried absolutely no weight. The vast majority of politicians are opportunists.
It's up to us to
Same reason
scrutinise
I
it.
can't get excited with Corbyn and that. So over here I've got somebody Sky Blue
the
says
Israelis got excited by Corbyn. They systematically got rid of him, put Starmer in place.
this is
Mossad went for him like nothing
I mean,
before.
this is the thing. I
And
think
he's a nice man. He couldn't really. His feelings get hurt. How could you call him an anti-Semite? How do you call me an anti-Semite? They did. He's just a human.
I think we've got to look as well, right? At you know, David Miller. Did you pay attention?
Yes,
David Miller.
Professor David Miller.
David Miller's excellent. And if anybody's
Brighton
watching,
or down south, he was a professor down south, wasn't he?
right, but he's a Scottish guy. Not that matters, but it's like,
It matters.
It matters.
It matters to us.
But David Miller is kind of like the preeminent expose of Zionism. You know what I mean? He's very good. You know,
Suspended from his university.
that's right.
Great
That's
guy.
right. That's
Great
right.
guy.
So Miller, I try to pay attention to what I mean. You know, there's so much information that it's hard to keep a track of everything. You know, but Miller has exposed the murky, dark, bizarre roots that this disgusting
Yes.
ideology has, and where it's found its way. And I think if you look, for example, it's well known. It's definitely the case. People like
Can I interrupt you for 1 sec? Your screen's gone off here. Is that okay, Bob?
that's okay. That's all right. Unless you need to see yourself.
No, I don't.
The people like Tommy Robinson and people like that, they're almost certainly, you know what I mean?
Funded.
I think so. I think that we can tell. It becomes ever more obvious as to where Zionism is funded. But there's no two ways about it.
But they're coming on Friday, 6 o'clock in the Meadows. The far right
are coming to the Meadows.
Yeah.
I think people should just let them go and just fucking no bother with them. To be honest, like, you know what I mean? That's because
I don't know. It's a quandary. It's an ethical quandary, Bob. You know, I mean, it's the most disadvantaged in society.
Well, the problem
the fascists,
is,
you know, they're not really fascists.
No,
not really fascists. They're disadvantaged, full of anger against, you know, difficult, Bob.
Well, there's a lot of misconstrued ideas about how things are or aren't, and you know,
Albanian pedos, Albanian fucking pedos.
Albanian pedos.
Well, that's what they were shouting. That's what we were.
Is that a new band or something? I don't know. It's fucking like, you know what I mean?
No, but this is what they're frightened of. Like that,
they're frightened of the Albanian pedos.
Well, pedos from anywhere. You know that they're. You know, there's been some attacks on women by asylum seekers, and then the thing outside Liverpool
the problem
last
you have is you have moronic class prejudice liberal lefties who have got no who have got no concept of anything other than their own self-righteousness, who just make things worse, and they go up there and they fucking start making a.
But that's not true.
But it's true though. They
you have to stand against fascism.
You need to stand against fascism, but you need to know what fascism is and isn't as well. Do you know what I mean? That's.
But there are fascists involved, Bob.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
But
I think Tommy Robinson's a fascist, don't you?
I think he's a fanny.
He's a fucking fanny.
They do tend to go together, like, you know what I mean? It's like
a fascist fanny.
Yeah. King of Hibs, hello to you. On your cell, John says Zambo. Zambo TV.
Zambo TV.
One of our guests.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Basically, well, listen. Is there anything else you want to tell me about that? Let me ask. Let me ask you something else about this.
The thing about that was about the Arab Spring. When I got on the plane to Lyon. Eventually, I got through the military to, looking at my passport, stop the taxi, going to the airport. That kind of rush of if I can just stay sane for 5 minutes, I'll just say. And then I got through all these passport checks, and every time I went through them, I began to fear going into a military jail, Egyptian jail. And then I got on a flight to Lyon, and the guy sitting next to me was from Morocco, and he said he didn't understand how the Europeans didn't know this was going to happen. He hadn't left Cairo. He was hiding somewhere in Cairo from the secret police. And he then explained to me about the deaths in 2013 of Egyptian 200 or 250 students and activists.
At the square
killed.
when they had
yes,
that.
Yes. And I've got a note of it. I can't find it right now. But and he was saying to me, if it'd just been Arabs at Ismailia,
it would have been a bloodbath.
It would have been a bloodbath. They would have had knives.
Yeah.
Both him and the Iraqi guy said when they attacked us, he thought they would have knives, and they didn't. So it was, there's that Orientalism, the thing about we can't attack Europeans and stuff like that, or we can't be as barbaric with them. So he was really critical in a positive criticism of the Europeans and their privilege, really. But he was on side.
This is what
he was
I'm
on side.
Okay, but even you yourself, like, I admire the fact that you're not unaware of how for want of a better term, your own privilege, or like the collective privilege of the people that were essentially there, right?
Yes.
And you're saying, you had
the
this
guy crying from Wales.
Yeah, but you had this collective humanitarian mission.
Totally.
That you're kind of
it's difficult to. I mean, people. You could feel the love. Do you know what I mean? People, I love you, John. I love you. People just met. Do you know what I mean? It was very moving.
Maybe this is what I'm trying to somehow articulate and express about this, is that these kind of like collective group kind of expressions of humanity and love or whatever, you know what I mean, which you can get also on, even if you go on the marches, you know what I mean, to a certain extent, the people that they share a common.
Yes.
But it is essentially. In terms of like that politically, that doesn't carry an awful lot of weight, and
it's up to us to translate it.
But John, what I'm trying to say
action.
is, so many of those people who you're part of that movement with or whatever, they're essentially bourgeois liberals, right? And they're probably
but they're not.
But they are. They're going to go.
You'd have to come with me. And
how many?
Point to them.
What are you trying to tell me? They're communists and socialists.
Mainly.
You think so?
Mainly.
I think they use that term.
They think they're communists,
well,
but
it's
they're
that
not
thing,
really
isn't it? It's like they use
like
these.
McGarkey.
Well, they use these terms, you know what I mean, and then you scratch the surface, and it's like.
Well,
who is it that sung?
They feel it.
Who is
they
it?
Feel it. You see it.
Who is it? Sung "Love Me, I'm a Liberal" again? Who was that? I forget his name. It was He's dead. He killed himself in the 60s, didn't he?
Oh, a comedian.
He was funny.
Yeah.
Love me, love me, love me. Was it Wayne? Zambo TV. Corbyn had his chance. He threw his comrades under the bus. Walked back everything he wants to. Listen, let me tell you something about this. Right?
Corbyn survived. He survived. He got kicked out the Labour Party. He set up a political grouping with 500,000 people who've signed up. I know it's just an email list, but it's a it's a start. Do you know what I mean? It's a start to come out of the British Labour
500,000 folk to sell timeshares to. Is that what you're basically saying? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what we've managed to get. Like,
there'll be no communists in there.
Sultana's timeshares.
But I always
I
always say, Bobby, there's a danger of cynicism. Do you know what I mean? Cynicism is a corruption. One has to have pessimism.
It keeps you amused, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's fucking like, fuck's sake, we can't dispense with that altogether.
You can't dispense with humour. You can't dispense with humour. But this stuff isn't really funny.
They're trying their hardest too, though. Let's be honest about it. Like, you know what I mean?
The danger of elitism as well. These fucking workerism.
It's not that. It's not that. It's it's the Vampire Castle. It's like I made I think it'd be Fisher's famous essay. It's like it's that sense. There's
Fisher now. He's good. He's dead. Adam Curtis. You're a sort of Adam Curtis guy, aren't you? You're a sort of
like Adam Curtis. I mean, but again, it's like
they're just bourgeois liberals as well.
Well, they are though as well. It's this thing. It's like we've reached
We've
reached a political and a cultural nadir and plateau, in the same sense.
That's also the chance of rebirth of.
I love you. I admire your hope, John. Like, you know what I mean?
A pedagogy of hope, a teaching of hope. People taught me about hope. People have taught me about hope, Bob.
No, I did. Look, here's the thing, right?
They taught me. The people that were there taught me. I mean, they were utterly committed. They were saying, and I was going, you know,
But it's
I'm
like
not
a
sure
bunch
if I
of-
want
but
to
it-
stay the night here and
But
get.
is it like a bunch of Quakers turning up and kind of like, you know, peacefully trying to sort of
Yes.
like not affect
Yes.
anything really? You know what
Well,
I mean?
well, but they turn up, they show up, and they'd give their lives for it.
Right,
They'd
but you know, this
they
is
would,
where- this
they
is
would
where-
lay down their lives for the Palestinians. They
Right,
would.
and I think
They would.
Look, I get it. I'm not.
The Muslims, they were praying, and they were, you know, utterly, and generous in their language and their spirit. You know, that gave me hope. It gave me hope,
No, and
and I hope I can get on a fucking plane out of here. Do you know what I mean? I just hope. I
out of
pray.
here, you're never getting out of here again, John.
Out of Cairo.
You're a regular guest, like, you know what I mean? Like.
Out of Cairo, get me out of Cairo. Slow boat to Cairo.
So, did you feel at any point? Did you genuinely feel concerned for your welfare?
Oh yeah. Oh, when I had sitting down with my hands up after that guy been crying, I thought I'll be crying like him any minute now, because it was vicious. There was a violence, and they were saying the guys were just hired for 100 Egyptian dollars. They were just the poor poor people from the Sinai and places. That's what the Moroccan guy was saying. But but when I was thrown out, I was worried. That on the bus, I was glad I didn't get physically beaten up. I just got roughed up a bit, but I was worried about going into an Egyptian jail. I didn't welcome the prospect of that, because you were, and being so cut off really from anybody else, not having a phone that worked, and my ill-preparedness bamboozled me.
Do you think that the opposition from these groups, whether it's Palestinian Solidarity Campaign or whatnot,
Yeah.
do you genuinely believe
Yeah.
that they hold some kind of oppositional political position?
Totally. Especially like the Algerians who have lived through the FLN, the wretched of the earth, Frantz Fanon's wretched of the earth. You know, you've got to kick out the colonials. You've got to attack the colonials. You know, and when they turned, they were militant. There was a feeling of militancy when the Algerians and that turned. Honestly,
what I'm asking you, John,
militant.
is that, like you know, maybe you're thinking that like that's what people individually that collectively make up these groups, that they have some kind of militant political
But they
position.
also have a militant genealogy from
John,
kicking out the French. The French were like
John. I'm talking about like in Scotland, right?
Yeah.
In our protest
Yeah.
groups and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
do you genuinely believe that there's a political will or comprehension there within these groups?
Yes, I do.
But it doesn't seem to manifest, John.
I do. But
Can you understand why I say that? I don't particularly sense that. I see them
for instance,
going out.
can
and
I give you
see-
an exact target? Leonardo's. You know, the focus on
But then,
targeting
you target,
Leonardo's,
but
and
they're not targeting the political class, though. And the political class, the political class,
they're targeting John Sweaty and
they're not
Angus
enough.
Robertson.
I don't believe so.
Well,
I don't believe
mean,
so
there's
enough.
only 24 hours in a day. You know, people are doing their best. I can guarantee
Well,
that.
I think there's a
to the point of exhaustion and mental collapse. You know what I mean?
Do you think? What about the schism within even sections of Scottish culture, where you have sections of the nationalist movement who fall into this because of this culture war stuff? You know, the gender war stuff.
Yeah.
Many people. It's potentially primarily an online pathology.
Yeah.
But they're comfortable to either essentially assimilate to a complete and utter Zionist assimilation, where they almost are pro-Israel, or they're incredibly
I don't know
dismissive.
anybody in the trans rights, for example. There seems to be an articulation between trans rights and anti-Israelis, anti-Zionism. Do you know what I mean?
But I'm talking about the pro-Israeli side of the culture there.
The pro-Israeli. We at the start of the marches, we used to have a teacher and another guy with big Israeli flags and a kind of minder. But it was very a sort of sophisticated guy in a suit who was kind of minding them, and we'd sit down in the middle of the march with a huge Zionist Israeli flag. But there hasn't been. I don't think there's been an intellectual assimilation amongst sections of the class that you're talking about. That Scotland is essentially behind Palestine.
Right.
Do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that there's very reactionary aspects to the independence movement.
Yes.
There was the guy.
The SNP didn't vote against the prescription of Palestine.
They abstained.
I don't really understand. They say because of these Nazi groups, but
this
I mean,
is what
even
I'm talking about.
Corbyn and Sultana didn't abstain from that. They were quite clear on the.
Fucking abstained, and now they're coming out and they're talking about a Palestinian state today, and what have you. But even I'm talking about even in just the sort of the wider movement of pro-independence.
But that's nationalism is a Janus edge.
Yeah, but hold on. There was a whole bunch of people who are ardent Scottish nationalists and publicly Scottish nationalists who condemned and criticised the Palestinian activists joining our march for Scottish independence.
You'd have to give me a...
Well, that happened. That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you that happened.
I'm shocked in that. I've never heard of that.
Well,
I've never heard of that.
And I don't understand. I mean, you couldn't get a more anti-imperialist movement in the Scottish independence movement, at principle.
Yes,
surely
it's also politicised by the right, by the managerial
okay,
class.
but surely the quest for Scottish sovereignty is by its conception an anti-imperialist quest, right?
But we have to make it an anti. But you and I and people like us need to make it an anti.
You and me.
Sinn Féin, ourselves alone. Join
us
in a quest and a movement for anti-imperialism and anti-colonialism. That's
what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And it's like there's a whole bunch of reactionary Scottish folk, right?
Yeah.
Who, because they despise trans people, right? Seriously, because they fucking.
J.K. Rowling's
she's on another level altogether. But there's a whole section of them like they're so apoplectic at the idea of a guy in a dress.
Yeah.
And whatever the cultural fad of it is, whatever. But
fear-based,
they're so hostile to that section of the culture that because that section of the culture is pro-Palestine, they're fucking pro-Israel.
But that's like the fascists. That's like the Rangers.
It becomes part of that. It becomes like.
It's like the Shankill Road. They fly Israeli flags. Shankill and the Rangers.
Is this just a vulgar provocation?
Yes. Yes, it's a vulgar provocation, absolutely.
A vulgar provocation.
Absolutely.
We're surrounded by them.
But we're not, you and I aren't vulgar, we're sophisticated.
Stop talking in this collective sense, it's making me feel nervous, like, you know what I mean? You were trying to get me to join the Green Party the other day, like, you know what I mean? Like, fucking hell.
Get Bob to start, he needs a collective base, he needs enabled through a political party.
I don't believe in political parties. I think they're a disaster. But I think we should have wee Soviets and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I think that's what we need.
All power to the Soviet.
I think we should have wee Soviets.
But Leninism was a counter-revolutionary in a way. Do you know what I mean?
I think we should have. Right, is there any... I'll call out... anybody watching, we've got a decent amount of
decent
people.
audience. Good.
I don't know what I've got, like maybe 100 people have watched it on the X or something like that. If anybody's got a question they want to ask John, then fire away the now.
Fire ahead. Come ahead.
He's put his activism where his
where his mouth is.
Aye. And he's went out there. But listen, no, seriously, is there anything else you want to say about the experience, or even just about this crisis that's occurring? That we're all kind of impotent spectators in this, in many respects.
Where there's despair, there's hope. You know, I have to remind me. Sometimes it's not being overwhelmed with the despair, the horror of living again through Auschwitz and Belsen, and you know, it's overwhelming, and you know. But the internationally, there's more of us than there is of them. Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more about that.
You know, the Bogatyr ruling and where they talk about military intervention. You know, where they were all in Colombia and. You know, the Norwegians and the South Africans. South Africans have been incredible. The Algerians have been incredible.
It's important. You know, this is important. John White. Do you know John White, the Edinburgh writer and activist, John White?
I don't know if is he a disabled guy.
not obviously, unless I'm unaware.
I
wouldn't like to say, you know what I mean?
I was involved in.
No, he's an ex-boxer and bodybuilder, like, you know what I mean? But no, John had. He's written a brilliant book, Gaza, This Bleeding Land, I think it's called, and he had put on a talk a couple of months ago about it, and but while we were there, and the Q&A was going on, and there was this interesting discussion kind of emerged from that, which is that despite the this sort of nadir and dystopian hell that we're kind of faced with here, there's cause for hope internationally. Yes. You've got Abraham Traore, you have all these kind of movements occurring.
The New York mayor candidate,
you have this guy.
He's inspiration. We're into don't follow leaders, watch the park, but he's an inspiration. They're going to throw everything at him, aren't they? Communist and all this kind of stuff.
But the question is that Gaza is the nexus point of the crisis and fall of Western capitalism to a certain extent.
Correct.
You know, I think this has to be.
But socialism or barbarism, that was always a libertarian socialist thing from coming out of the anti-bomb movement. But there could be the Israelis have got nuclear weapons, and would they self-destruct if they felt they were absolutely getting beaten? Do you know what I mean? The Samson.
It may come from inside Israel, though. You may find that the populists decide that there is clearly discontent.
There's clearly discontent, but the polls seem to suggest that the Israelis are behind their leadership. You know, but I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to discern. One would hope there's resistance. You know, where there's power, there's resistance.
You won't be playing Sun City then, like, you know what I mean? You're not going to go over to Tel Aviv next week, are you? Just to sort of balance things
How
up.
could you go to Tel Aviv? I mean, there's great. What's that? Radiohead went to Tel Aviv.
So, yeah.
Radiohead. How could you do that? And that, what's that great songwriter who lost his sons? From
Nick Cave.
He went to Tel Aviv.
Yeah, he's a strange one as well, I have to say. I have a comment here. David Graham Scott says, tell John I'm a recovering junkie who calls himself a junkie to reclaim the name as an act of passive rebellion. A wee harmless guy in Wick.
Junkie's a stigmatising word.
A wee harmless
we're
guy
all junkies.
In Wick had a visit from the cops and ordered to take down his Palestinian flag. Oh, I need to know more about that. That's outrageous.
That's outrageous, by the way.
Is that true? We have to. I'm going to copy that into the other chat here so that we can. So in Wick, well, DGS is the local reporter. So hopefully he can
keep it alive. Then we can fight that. Get everybody to put up Palestine flags.
Well, there's a bit of that.
Wick.
David Scott. What's the rest of the day got planned for you then, John?
Who are you asking?
You.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you specifically.
I've got Palestine activism to be doing.
Okay. And when's the next march?
Saturday.
And where will that be?
Wellington statue, 12 o'clock for 12:15.
Okay, and is it? And what's the story with?
It's a kind of anti-big business thing towards St Andrew's Square.
Is there any particular people talking?
I don't know. There's might be static actions and things like that.
Static actions.
Yeah,
indeed. Somebody says here, can you post a link to John's socials? Have you got any social media?
I'm just on Facebook.
What is your Facebook?
John David Player. They wouldn't believe it was called John Player, so it's John David Player. But as long as there's not Israeli trolls and Mossad trolls,
I don't think those that watch What the X are of that disposition. But you never know, like, you know what I mean? It's like kind of.
But they're the best funded secret intelligence in the world, aren't they? Mossad?
What about that? I mean, we were talking about. I know it's macabre and crazy to mention it, but you know, a guy I know was talking. We were sort of mentioning the whole. We were mentioning the whole situation with the pagers, you know.
Yes.
And how it was insane, and you're kind of going, you know, if it was a few years ago and it had been like, and they'd booby trapped one pager, it would have gone down in sort of like as an iconic espionage act, like when remember they put the poison on the umbrella and they'd done the boy on London Bridge.
Yes, and the CIA against Castro, remember?
With the cigar and everything, do you know what I mean? But like if they'd done one. It would, even one would have been like, fucking hell, you know what I mean? But like, they did thousands of them.
I know. That's what's... That they are a terrorist state.
Totally,
terrorist,
repugnant. And just before we go, what do you make of the shameless apologism and kind of excuses that get that for me is almost one of the most
shameless apologism from who?
From these souks and these establishments, sort of
Angus Robertson.
He's one of them, but I think some of these. Maybe more of these media figures, you know what I mean? Where you're kind of going like,
but they're not. But they'll be silenced now. They won't be coming out.
What about people like Melanie Phillips and people like that?
But they're right wingers.
Yeah, they're rabid, but at the same time,
Piers Morgan is an interesting case. I know, but he was so. Now he's so anti-Israeli. But the Israelis hate him. The Israelis hate him now. You know.
I know, but it's like what we're saying. It's like for me. That all just becomes kind of noise. It's just like it's just a sideshow. It's a it doesn't affect any change.
But how does cultural change come about?
Well, that's
through intellectuals, through the media, through people like yourself. Paul.
I think
people like yourself.
I think well, it's very flattering for you to say, but I think there's an element of what we have to be looking at though is the provocation about what the parameters of neoliberal culture are and mainstream culture. This is why this is really.
But you're out with the parameters.
Yeah, that's true.
You've found a space to be counter-hegemonic.
Well, it doesn't mean that I don't experience significant suppression and opposition to that.
But not from Mossad. The Mossad aren't going to cut your bollocks off.
Not yet.
They've got bombs back.
Oh, that's Amazon. That's my latest pager that's just been delivered by Amazon. Like, I don't remember ordering this. But I tell you, I think that this. I think there's a split. I think there's a lot of things to be harping on. Who's not with us this afternoon, but he's very much up to the whole argument of the old media and the new media and legacy media and I think there's an awful lot of worthy observation about where we draw our culture from. I've always deployed this Terence McKenna term, culture is not your friend. Because I think it's a brilliant term and it quantifies.
But culture is ordinary as well.
Culture is ordinary.
Raymond Williams.
But culture is also, personal and it's not necessarily. The whole point is that it's not a culture that's prescribed to us. Essentially, that's what we need to.
It's owned and controlled by the ruling class.
That's why that's the culture that is not our friend, and that's the culture that we always need to be opposing. But you get kind of people who are part of that culture, who are very much wedded to that, who are attempting to make arguments about the validity of culture. It's kind of makes no sense at that point to me. It's like
it's for people like yourself, like the role of the intellectual, the role of somebody making an intervention in the media, not to become assimilated.
Absolutely. You get
the
people,
assimilation apparatus of the British state is extraordinary.
Exactly. You've got people who are absolutely, ensconced in the mainstream culture. Making statements about about culture. This is embarrassing. You know what I mean? It's like this is not. There's no intellect there at all.
But your job is to expose them. Our job is expose them. Yes.
Who's fucking paying me? Like, you might get paid. You get fucking paid if you do a job. Like, that's fucking like what goes on with that? Like, But listen, John, it has been a rare pleasure. Like you were like, you need to. I think you needed to get it off your chest.
I needed to get it off. It's just because I could forget it in my own consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Because I was only there for about 5 or 6 days. Do you know what I mean? If that. So it wasn't like I was struggling against the.
Were your kids worried about you when you were there?
They never knew.
You never told them.
They weren't bothered. No bothered. His dad is just fucking mad.
Brilliant. He's joined the Zapatistas.
Oh, absolutely. Sub-commandant Marcos.
Somebody asked in the chat, is he an anarchist?
I'm very, very influenced by anarchist ideas. But it's how to express it politically. How to... You could go and drape yourself in a black flag up a mountain, and I think one has to engage critically and developmentally with what's going on, like have to engage with Corbyn and Sultana, and not just withdraw in the red and black flag.
Why
of
do we need?
anarchism.
Just before we go, why do we need to engage with Corbyn and Sultana?
Because they're articulating change. They've come through the process of the British establishment, and they're not having it anymore. They're ultra pro-Palestine. They're anti-nuclear weapons. That's we haven't discussed nuclear weapons except with the Israelis. The prospect of us all dying in a concentration camp, especially in Scotland with Vaseline. Do you know what I mean?
And on that cheery note, let's.
The cheer is that we haven't. I mean, I was in Che Guevara's hideout. 62 was the first real threat of all out.
Where was
war.
that in Cuba?
In Cuba, 62,
in Pinar del Rio.
Yes.
In Pinar del Rio.
Last year.
I've been there.
Yes.
I've been there.
He's got a sort of stone bed thing carved out there.
Yeah.
Great revolutionary. I think he was a bit depressed. I don't know why he went.
Oh, imagine that.
I think he was going to Bolivia with
the
30
depressed
men.
revolutionary, eh? You need to get him on some Prozac.
Get him on here,
you know what I mean?
Get him on here, Bob. Get him on here.
Could you tell me what SSRI you would best advocate for a revolutionary like? You know? Right, John.
Antidepressant. Well, they sent him to East German Hospital. Castro sent him to an East German hospital.
I'm aware of that. Actually,
He thought he was depressed.
Tell me, the festival is upon us.
Yes.
The BAMs have arrived.
The BAMs. But I think
you
people
love it.
say,
You're going to come out of this like sweetie wife stuff about how marvellous it is. It's such a celebration of. What about all these?
I'm into the People's Festival. I'm into Hamish Henderson's
Craig
idea.
Miller.
Yeah. Well, the Hamish Henderson's idea. He's a much.
I know the vibe about Hamish Henderson.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest intellects. He infiltrated the British Army. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And wrote our alternative national anthem in Scots. Freedom come all.
Yeah.
Very important figure.
Tell me, so are you got anything planned for the festival, or are you just going to get out of Dodge?
I try and go.
Bastard.
I'm going to try and get to as much as I possibly can. I like Darren McGarvey. I like him.
Darren, yeah, he's
a good lad.
He's got a show.
He's got a new book on, but I don't think it's in the festival. I'll try and get and see him every time.
No, I think he's doing something about his
trauma
right,
industrial complex.
Yeah, so you see Darren
and
McGarvey.
I think the Scots are really traumatised by colonialism.
The act of birth itself.
The act of birth are traumatised the minute they come out. It's the Somme, the First World War.
Right, we've kept everybody chatting away for it. It's been an enjoyable impromptu hour. I'm glad that we just did it this way rather than trying to be too creative about things. John, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much, Bob.
Thanks for being an unannounced impromptu guest on What the X on this fine Tuesday. Thanks to everybody who has joined us. And stay awake, stay aware. Stay
resistant.
I'll be back.
Stay anarchist.
Stay resistant. I'll be back with more countercultural offerings in due